the audience. So mainly the people in this room own businesses just like you. Give them a big takeaway or the most important thing as we close out our time together. Start with something.
Oh, there we go. I'm gonna try to kiss method here. So we're gonna keep it simple, stupid. You're going to feel forever in moments like it's a battle between working on the company and working for the company. You are right where you belong. And despite the successes that we've had, I somehow still look in the mirror and go, what the hell am I doing? And why can't this problem just go away? And I thought I solved this before. You are right where you need to be. The quote that I live by is, what makes you smart is to learn from your own mistakes. But what makes you extraordinary is learning from the mistakes of others. So if there's a case study out there, learn it. And don't allow yourself to be another metric somewhere, another stat somewhere. So learn from those mistakes. Really lean into the community. And I think, Brian, you know that with your team saying, talk to somebody at this table. I learned so much through other people's experiences and go, oh, okay, I'm going to take that with me back in my office. I'm going to try to implement it. And very often that refreshing experience of something new in my office had everlasting effects with my entire team. So please don't be shy, don't be introverted, do not think you're in this alone. There's nothing more that I would love to do than to help you. I was so excited driving here this morning with my fiance, and I said, this is such a big deal to me because this is what I want to do. I want to help people become better. And for me, because purpose is such a big deal to who I am, and to create something that's lasting longer than I will and have a longer lasting effect than I could reach, that's my goal. And I think they share the same sentiment of, well, this is why we do what we do, right? To create something bigger than ourselves, and this is why we put up with it. So you are right where you need to be. If you're not, I'm reminding you that you are, and continue to ask questions. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Sunny.
That's a good one to follow. Jen, I had a different answer until you started talking.
I should have practiced.
Yeah. I'd like to go first, guys, all right? So there is an employee that came to mind immediately as you said that, and she joined us last February. I'm going to use her as a case study. She was our administrative assistant, and I asked her that same question, and what's your future look like, and what are your goals? Because, like I said, I'm trying to align hers and mine, and seeing where we can get us going in the same direction. She had just graduated from communications in college, and that's when I created a department for HR. We never had it before. We were only 20-something individuals. So she took on that role, and she hit the ground running. Fast forward to the moment that humbled me was this past Christmas, where she started calling different schools, different community centers, different churches, and places of worship to find a family in need. And she found this family with 5 children and a single mom. And to see how my company showed up, they filled my main office to the brim with presents and gifts and toys. It was such a beautiful thing, and for me to dress up as Santa Claus and deliver it to them was so wholesome that in that moment I realized that the culture was beyond my preachings. It was bigger than me, and so to be a part of that was so wholesome, and all because I fed into and leaned into what their goals were, and so they could play their strengths. And you're right, I think even I'm guilty of forgetting the fact that sometimes they are temporary. So you might as well work side by side, shoulder to shoulder in the meantime, because that's when you get the best version of yourself as well as them. It is refreshing to see that. And another experience I had was seeing, I think, my team being attacking their work with a growth mindset. They took on, a year and a half ago, we took on our largest contract since the company's inception. Yesterday we celebrated our 21 years. And a year and a half ago we took on that job, and since then my team has kind of gotten out of their comfort zone and just kind of nailed everything. And they are no longer comfortable in what they do. And so sometimes I do find myself steamrolling conversations saying, don't be comfortable with this, but when I literally, in my meetings, and I'm not lying or exaggerating, I will stand in the corner behind a fridge so that I can stop myself from running my tongue and kind of just taking over those conversations because I'm so used to being up front. It's nice to see that kind of run itself. And yeah, as long as you continue to let somebody else speak, you learn a lot and you see where your culture is. And it kind of, that is in and of itself a case study for where you stand and where you apply your
I love that saying where you don't always have to be high directive, right? People can stretch themselves oftentimes, and a lot of times, your early example, team members come and show up for one another. I love that, right? Rob.
Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, I don't market either, and
Okay.
somehow by some dumb luck I'm up here. But honestly, culture is not something you set and you forget about. It's continuous. For me, it takes the shape of meetings, almost to a fault, to be completely honest. I have weekly meetings with my leadership team. I have bi-weekly meetings with my administrative team. And I have monthly meetings with my operations team, in which I provide a bunch of breakfast to the entire organization. Those meetings allow me to do checks, like temperature checks, health checks, do preventive maintenance on individuals, saying, hey, how are you tackling this issue? How are you seeing this? How are you guys working together? And through that feedback, as small as they may seem, I really am able to learn more about my company through their eyes than I ever can doing executive planning. And this is why it's so important. I think a lot of times we get feedback from our own customers as well. And so that culture is something, there's no right answer, and there's no one way to do it either. So for me, through these meetings and through these experiences, and all the SOPs and all the KOMs, is how I continuously kind of keep control and put barriers up on execution, communication, and what the company envisions as philanthropy, which invests in, igniting purpose is one of our core values. And how do we then apply ourselves to feel like we have a greater purpose than just our job and just our docket? And those experiences have moved mountains in comparison, I think, to some of the other things that I've done.
Great impact on external customers and culture impact too. Sunny, let's hear from you.
Yeah, today it looks like many different things. I think it depends on the month that you ask me what our culture looks like. It depends on the season. But I'm very happy to say that through our core values, the one that I want to focus on right now is ignite purpose. I can't allow my team to buy into my vision. I just can't. And if I did, it's not sustainable. So what I have found to be successful is to find what your vision is, what your purpose is, what your calling is, and find out where it overlaps with mine. And if you can do that enough times, you'll grow a company with 20 plus people that are rowing in the same direction. So don't allow people to buy into your culture, but kind of work with them. Very often, shout out to the Evergreen Foundation. This is through one of the conversations I had over there. But through them, I learned that this analogy of if you're outside the car and you feel like you're in front, you're pulling the team behind you, you need to reevaluate yourself. And that culture needs to be built with your team, and so it's more than just preaching it. It is not at all linear in any capacity. And one quick example is me being in the glass and glazing industry. One of the greatest glazers I've ever worked with, and he's the top producer, equally was the worst contributor of culture. And it was a very toxic environment. That's the ugly side of things that a lot of people don't like to talk about. It's not just about the success, it's how we got here. And when I was left with that option, I made the hard decision to let him go. And in that moment, I thought it was going to be a setback, and I thought I was derailing what we were doing, because again, we were in the survival mindset. But when we look back now, I can't think of a single moment where I said I feel bad about compromising that individual for the sake of the longevity of our culture. So don't I think, sacrifice anything like that, and take whatever steps or breaks or exits you need to take along the way.
Great. Thank you, Sunny.
And I've heard Rob and Brian both talk about intention. The truth of the matter is, when I took over my role in 2021, there was no intention. We were, I think, struggling for survival. And that's how I originally started that division. We were a team of 15 people when I got in, and there was no agenda item called culture. It wasn't on my docket. It was never a consideration. And as the team grew, it demanded of me to sit down and think, okay, how do we intentionally now create an environment where I ask myself these questions? How do we compete with not just our competitors, but also other industries, because we're consuming the same talent? How do I then create an environment where I can acquire and retain top talent? And then 3, how are we just happy? Happiness is such a big deal to me at my company, because I spend 8 to 10 hours a day with these people. And then I go home and spend, a few waking hours with my family? You might as well enjoy it. And so building that culture, I think, was such a big deal to us. And we sat down, and it really rooted from our 5 core values, which we had kind of created in these last few years. And then we implement culture through them. So to answer your question, it was not at all intentionally when I first took over the role, but it was forced upon me. And now it gives me, I think, a greater purpose, which I'm sure I'll talk about as one of our core values and our cultural assets later on. Thank you.
back into the beginning. So you're in the early stages of starting the business, building the team, building the customer base, building your presence in community, and you're all on the stage because you're known to us to have built a strong culture around your business. I'm interested in when that even first hit your radar screen. Is it something you went in the beginning asking yourself, and what did you ask? What type of culture I want to build around my business? How do you keep track of that as you go? I'm just getting started. You know, I've noticed so many entrepreneurs are experts in the thing that they do, and then there's all this other business stuff that you've got to pick up and learn kind of on the fly, and as you're building a business. So help the audience put their mind in the same place with you. And let's start with Rob.
Very well said, Jen. My name is Simon. I own and operate I work in the construction sector, but I own and operate a commercial architectural glass and glazing solution company based out of Detroit, Michigan. We applied for the Great Places to Work because last year in 2025 we were awarded the 50 companies to launch here. And it was that little win, I think, that I really want to capitalize on. And those wins are something you need to, I think, keep giving to your companies so that your I think, culture continues to grow in that direction. So it was a win. I think I want to continue to sustain those wins and remind that my people are bigger than independent, continue on that path. So very well put together program, and you guys have great impacts that continues for one of our companies. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.